Perhaps you're now planning lessons that you're going to be delivering over Zoom. Maybe you're wondering how you can best connect with your students and grade their assignments over the new distance learning format. Perhaps you're feeling a little overwhelmed by all of the new tasks that there are to do, things that you may not feel particularly familiar with or comfortable with. I made this video to offer you some perspective on how you can navigate through times of change and uncertainty. Now, the principles that I'm going to be outlining could be useful for going through all kinds of changes, but it's especially important for what we're going through right now. I'm going to share with you some ideas that will help you to stay grounded in the bigger picture of things, but also I'm going to share some reflection questions that will help you to connect with your own internal resources and bring you clarity about what you need right now in order to move forward. The work that you do is as important as ever, but also who you are is important. So let's consider some things that you can start doing today that will help you to feel better in the days to come. Key point number 1, accept what is, grieve what isn't. When traumatic events or unexpected changes occur, we ultimately have to accept these things in order to move forward. Acceptance is what allows us to be grounded in our new reality. It's what allows us to breathe, to feel calm, to feel relaxed, and to be able to move creatively through new solutions. That is the gift of acceptance. However, before we can come to that place of acceptance, we need to be able to grieve the normalcy we've lost. Right now, we have lost our normal. Many of us are feeling sad about events that are not happening, weddings, baby showers, graduations. Many of us are missing the daily interactions that we're used to having in the community with people that matter to us. Some of us aren't even putting on pants in the morning. No judgment. So, in order to arrive at that place of acceptance, we have to accept this grief. And grief can look a lot of different ways. It has different stages. What does that grief look like for you? For some of us, grief comes in a flash of irritability when we're forced to do something new, something that didn't exist before. Sometimes grief is that feeling of sadness that we feel in the morning where we're just not having much of a sense of purpose or energy, don't really want to get out of bed and spring into action to do things that don't feel important. For some of us, it's that feeling of disbelief at learning of one more thing, one more cancellation, something that isn't going to happen, something that we get excited about that we're not going to have this year. So it's important to pay attention to your grief. You can't bypass it. Trying to bypass your grief can cause other problems. However, there are things that you can do with your grief. I say, build your grief a nest. So how do you build your grief a nest? This is an acronym that I developed to help us move through these difficult emotions. So let's start. Beginning with the letter N, N stands for name it. Now, when we're feeling a heavy emotion, the first thing we want to do is identify what that emotion is. So let's name it. Is it fear? Are you feeling sadness? Are you feeling guilty? Do you feel lost? What is the feeling? If you can identify that feeling, that will bring you some immediate relief because you are allowing that experience inside of you to be known, to be seen, to be felt. And you may have heard the expression, what we resist persists. So don't resist the emotion, but name it. Give it a name. Once you have it named, that brings us to our next letter, which is E, and E stands for express it. Now, this can look so many different ways, but do what feels right for you. When you feel a big emotion, depending on what that emotion is, do you want to cry? Having a good cry can really be helpful. Or sometimes, maybe you want to scream in a pillow. Maybe you want to go for a brisk walk and talk it out with someone that you trust. Maybe you prefer to write in a journal, or create a piece of artwork, or go talk to a therapist. There are so many different ways to express big emotions, but it is so important that you let that emotion out. Just get it out, because it is really key that you are expressing it constructively rather than acting it out destructively. So express the emotion, get it out. Now, once you've done that, that brings us to our next letter, which is S. And this one is important as well, and this stands for support. Let other people be there for you. People like to feel needed. They like to feel useful. So allow people that you trust to know when you're going through something difficult. Reach out. Let them be there to listen to you, to check in with you, to share the space of sadness or discomfort, because it is so important. And when we have these bonding experiences where we open up with others in an authentic way, it actually releases oxytocin in the brain. Oxytocin is nature's pain reliever. So allow yourself to have that natural benefit of reaching out. And finally, it brings us to T. T is to give thanks. To thank people, to be thankful for what you have, to be thankful for the things that are working, that are going well. When we're feeling difficult emotions, it can be really important to be able to redirect our attention to the things that we appreciate, because appreciation is the antidote to pain and sadness. So take a moment to consider, what do you appreciate? Who can you thank? What can you be thankful for? People need to hear that you appreciate them, but you also need to be able to have that feeling of appreciation. It's good for you too. So when you're feeling heavy emotions, build your grief a nest. Your first reflection question is this: what do you still need to grieve in order to practice deeper acceptance?
I miss going to class and then my friends and I getting distracted during lessons and talking. I just miss my friends. And I know we can still see each other, but the school environment was so great.
Although I hate to admit it, school has been one of the most missed things in my life, because with school, I have a type of schedule. I can wake up at a certain time of the day and leave school at that exact time. However, being in quarantine has gotten my schedule all mismatched, and I've been waking up at noon, which I don't normally do when it comes to school. So school definitely helps me get on a schedule.
Key point number 2, seek to adapt rather than control. What ultimately allows us to manage big changes is our ability to adapt. But when changes happen, it's not always clear how to adapt. We don't always know what will work or what won't. So I offer you the analogy of a surfer. A surfer gets in the water aware of the risks and dangers and faces strong currents and undertows. But what allows the surfer to stay upright is his or her ability to be flexible and to be sensitive to the changing tides of the water, to move with the tides, to work with the natural forces rather than trying to dominate or control the wave. So a big part of adapting is being honest with yourself about what you really need in order to move forward. Ask yourself these questions. What do I need in order to make this work for me? Is there something that I still need to learn? What or who are my resources in order to figure this out? And then the important part is to be proactive in getting that extra support. Remember that whatever you're going through, there's somebody else that has it figured out, that's already tried it, that is probably able to help walk you through it. And sometimes those people are closer than you think. So once you've identified what it is that you need right now to move forward, reach out to others and get the support that you need and that you deserve. Remember, adapting is not always easy, but you know what's harder? Trying to move forward without adapting, without making those accommodations that we need. Reflection question: what are the things you need to adapt right now?
It does, at first it does get really frustrating when other classmates are not being the same way as they were before. But if we just keep pushing and keep working at it and finding all the kinks and stuff, I know that we can make Zoom and whatnot, Google Classroom or whatever learning resource you're using, we can normalize it to the point where we can do a good job at it.
I was pleasantly surprised by our first 2 days of remote learning, because I was really worried about how they were going to replicate the dynamics of a classroom, when it's over video call. but it ended up being fun. I don't know how, but one of my teachers said that we might raise fish. Another one said we're gonna grow. Oh no, she said we're gonna raise fish and grow beets as part of our environmental science class. And we did breakout rooms today in Zoom for my environmental science class too. And I'm actually so excited for some of my classes.
Key point number 3, just do it differently now. Practice imperfectionism. When change happens, we can be thrust into a completely new way of doing things. Doing new things feels awkward. We make mistakes. Each day requires more energy and attention as we're no longer repeating the familiar. And with this brings some fatigue because we're working harder. There also is sometimes the extra stress of knowing that as hard as we're working, we know things aren't perfect. In fact, some days they may not even feel like they're that great. But there is a learning curve that comes with adapting to change that we have to be able to expect. So what does this require of us? It requires that we practice what I like to call imperfectionism, the art of being imperfect and being okay with that. Now, it's important to zero in on this point because people who work in education are often perfectionists who like to do things with a certain level of mastery and confidence. But to be okay with the awkward process of pioneering new things means that we have to be willing to give ourselves grace when things don't go well. How do you do this? Perhaps you use humor, or maybe you reach out to trusted friends or colleagues who can help to normalize that discomfort. Maybe you use affirmations like progress, not perfection, or today my best is good enough. However you do this, it's important that you practice compassion for yourself. Self-compassion eases our growing pains. It reminds us that who we are is enough, and it helps us to extend that compassion to others as well. Reflection question: where do you need to embrace imperfection right now?
They say that humans like routine, and I think I fall into that category, so I like routine. And I didn't have a routine from March to June when we were just kind of thrown into distance learning. And so this year, what I'm really trying to do is create a dedicated workspace where I can function. And I've decided that it can't be in my room. And so I painted my desk, I'm putting it in the loft, and then I'm gonna make that area my workspace. And so that's just kind of how I'm trying to cope.
Key point number 4, perception is powerful. Choose your own narrative. The educational system is navigating huge changes right now and had very little time to prepare. Such changes will inevitably cause fear and concern. After all, we don't know how these changes will play out, and we're left to wonder, will our personal and professional needs continue to be met? Things are going to be messy. People will show up to the table as imperfect human beings, and mistakes will be made. But we need to ask ourselves the following questions. How will we choose to interpret these unfolding events? What attitude will we greet each day with? What tone will we use to discuss the important functions of learning and teaching? Perception is powerful because we will always see more of what we're looking for. Look for the problems and they will be magnified. But look for the good and you will see that everywhere. Your way of seeing and responding to everyday events sets the tone for your day, but it also sets an example for others to follow. So be intentional with how you think and speak about things. Reflection question: how could the situation you're in make you stronger, personally and professionally?
Personally, I definitely understand what teachers are going through right now. I feel like teachers have probably even more pressure than their students because they're the ones coming up with these lesson plans, and basically their entire lesson plan has been dispersed and there are lags, and they need to keep teaching their subject.
I know teachers and students alike were both having trouble adjusting from what we just thought was normal, and now this is our normal. I feel like nowadays, now everyone has kind of gotten to the groove of like, okay, that was a trial run. Now it should start getting better, and I feel like it's only, a graph that will only get better.
Key point number 5, remember the critically important role that you play. Not everyone can say that the work they're doing every day to make a living shapes the minds and hearts of young people, but you can. You're doing that constantly, and the work that you do truly changes lives every day.
Going into high school, at first I just thought of teachers as another person that I had to respect rather than a peer that I could talk to. However, going through my 4 years of high school, I've been able to connect with a lot of my teachers, and having that connection with another teacher and someone to talk to outside of your family is very welcoming to me as a student.
Thank you for believing in me. That's it. That's all we need.
Thank you for being safe, and thank you for just being patient with everyone. We really can't do anything. No student can do anything without a teacher.
So here you are with difficult tasks ahead, but you can do them. There's messy situations to figure out, but you've got what it takes to work through them, one day at a time. But you might still find yourself sometimes questioning, is all of this really worth it? And when that happens, I want you to ask yourself, what brought you into this work to begin with? What is it that made you want to be in education? What are the rewards that this work brings you that no one else can ever take away? I'm inviting you to craft your own personal mission statement. This is going to be the statement of why this work means something to you, why it matters, not just under normal circumstances, but why it's especially important for you to show up now. And I'm going to encourage you to refer to this mission statement when you feel discouraged, disappointed, or overwhelmed. Reflection question: what is your personal mission statement? My reason for doing the work that I do is... In the 1980s, the late Fred Rogers, also known as Mr. Rogers, was quoted as saying that when he was a little boy and he would see scary things in the news, his mother would tell him, when bad things are happening in the world, look for the helpers. There are always helpers. He said that even as an adult, it brought him comfort to know that even when bad things happened, there were always helpers around. There were always caring people in the world. I'm making this video today because you are the helper. You are the hero. Why? Because you are showing up. You are moving forward and doing what you need to do to adapt to change right now so that you can show up for the young people who desperately need you. They need you to be there for them and to show them that even when difficult times happen, we can all adapt. We can all change as we need to and move forward together. If you have any comments or suggestions about this video, please email me at katie@wellnesstalktoday.com, and I look forward to joining you in the future with other videos in this series. Thank you for being with me today.